Hello everyone, and welcome back to Daily English Podcast. I'm so incredibly happy you're here today. Whether you're listening while driving on your commute, taking a quiet walk in your neighborhood, studying, working, relaxing after a long, difficult day, or just getting ready for bed, thank you for choosing to spend this time with me. It is truly an honor to be part of your day. Today's episode is about something many people quietly lose without even realizing it's gone. Trust in themselves. Have you ever doubted a decision, even when deep down in your heart, you knew it was the right one? Have you ever asked 5 different people for advice because you just couldn't bring yourself to trust your own judgment? Or maybe you've made one mistake in the past, a choice that didn't work out the way you hoped, and ever since then, you've struggled to believe in yourself. If any of that sounds familiar, you're definitely not alone. Before we begin, I'd love to hear from you. When was the last time you truly trusted yourself? Was it a big life change, or just a small daily choice? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I genuinely enjoy reading your comments, and many of your stories inspire future episodes of this podcast. Let's take a deep breath together. What if the biggest thing holding you back in life isn't a lack of ability, a lack of resources, or a lack of time, but simply a lack of trust in yourself? What if confidence isn't something you're born with, some magical gift given only to a lucky few, but something you actually rebuild, slowly, one decision at a time? What if the answers you've been searching for everywhere else have actually been inside you all along? We are going to explore all of this today. We're going to talk about why we lose our inner compass, and more importantly, how we can gently find it again. Have you ever noticed how children interact with the world? When a young child wants to draw a picture, they don't stop and ask 10 people what color the sky should be. If they want to paint the sky green and the grass purple, they just do it. They don't second-guess their creativity. They trust their instinct. They move through the world with this beautiful, natural certainty. But as we grow older, something shifts. That quiet, confident inner voice starts to get interrupted by the noise of the outside world. Think about a young woman named Sarah. Sarah is a university student, and ever since she was a little girl, she loved nothing more than writing stories. She would spend hours filling notebooks with characters and adventures. She wanted to study literature. She knew it in her bones. But when the time came to choose her university major, she sat at the dinner table with her family. Her parents, who loved her very much and only wanted her to be safe and secure, told her that writing was a beautiful hobby, but it wasn't a real career. They told her she needed to study finance. Finance is safe, they said. You'll always have a job. You can write on the weekends. Sarah felt a heavy stone in her stomach. Every instinct in her body told her that finance was the wrong path for her. But these were her parents. They were older, wiser, and they cared about her future. So, Sarah ignored that feeling in her stomach. She told herself, they must know better than I do. She chose finance. And in that exact moment, a tiny thread of trust between Sarah and her own intuition was broken. Perhaps you've experienced this yourself. It doesn't have to be about a career. It could be about the clothes you choose to wear, the friends you spend time with, or the hobbies you pursue. Early on in life, we start to learn that the people around us, our parents, our teachers, society, have expectations. And when our internal desires clash with those external expectations, we often choose to abandon our own voice to keep the peace. Psychologists call this internalizing borrowed beliefs. We take the fears, the anxieties, and the opinions of other people and we wear them as if they are our own. Over time, the borrowed voices become so loud that we forget what our real voice sounds like. But later in this episode, we'll discover why your intuition is often far more accurate than you think, and how you can actually start to hear it again, even if it's been quiet for years. The loss of self-trust doesn't only happen in childhood, though. Sometimes, it happens slowly, inside relationships that are supposed to make us feel safe. Imagine a man named David. David fell in love with someone who was incredibly charming. At first, everything was wonderful. But as the months passed, David started noticing small things. His partner would make unkind jokes about David's friends. When David expressed that it hurt his feelings, his partner would roll their eyes and say, "You're too sensitive, David. You're making a big deal out of nothing. I was just joking." At first, David knew he wasn't overreacting. He knew the jokes were mean. But when someone you love repeatedly tells you that your reality is wrong, you start to believe them. This is a psychological dynamic often called gaslighting. It's when someone manipulates you into doubting your own memory, your own perception, and your own sanity. David would find himself apologizing for things he didn't even do. He would ask his partner for permission before making simple choices, like what to buy at the grocery store, because he became terrified of doing the wrong thing. He completely lost the ability to trust his own mind. He felt like he was walking on broken glass, constantly checking the expressions on other people's faces to know if he was allowed to feel okay. Leaving the toxic relationship was the hardest thing David ever did. But even after he left, the damage remained. He found himself standing in empty rooms, unable to decide what television show to watch, because there was no one there to tell him what the right choice was. Maybe you've survived a situation like this. Maybe someone made you feel like your feelings weren't valid. If you have, please hear me when I say this, you're certainly not alone. It is completely understandable that you struggle to trust yourself now. When your trust is broken by someone else, your mind builds a wall to protect you. It's a defense mechanism. But unfortunately, that wall also blocks out your own inner guidance. So, how do we begin to tear that wall down? Well, first, we have to look at the fear that lives behind it. The fear of making mistakes. We live in a culture that is obsessed with success. We celebrate the final product, the victory, the top of the mountain. We rarely celebrate the messy, confusing, mistake-filled journey it takes to get there. Because of this, we develop a deep, paralyzing fear of doing things wrong. Let's think about Maya. Maya always dreamed of starting a small baking business. Her friends were always telling her, "Maya, these cookies are incredible. You should sell these." Maya loved baking. It brought her peace. But every time she sat down to create a business plan, her mind flooded with worst-case scenarios. What if I spend money on ingredients and no one buys anything? What if I mess up an order? What if I get a bad review on the internet? What if I fail and everyone laughs at me? Maya was terrified. So, what did she do? She became a perfectionist. She told herself that she just needed to research a little more. She spent 6 months reading books on marketing. She spent another 3 months designing the perfect logo. She spent weeks rewriting the descriptions on her website. Months turned into a year, and Maya still hadn't sold a single cookie. Have you ever noticed that perfectionism is often just fear wearing a nice suit? Perfectionism tricks us into thinking we are being responsible. We tell ourselves we are just preparing. But in reality, perfectionism is the ultimate destroyer of self-trust. It tells you that unless you can guarantee a perfect outcome, you cannot trust yourself to take action. Overthinking, like Maya experienced, is an attempt to control the future. We try to analyze every possible outcome, every possible risk, hoping that if we just think hard enough, we can eliminate the possibility of failure. But there's one daily habit that quietly rebuilds self-confidence, and it has nothing to do with success or getting things perfect. We'll talk about that very soon, and it might completely change how you view your daily routine. The truth about Maya is that she wasn't actually afraid of failing at baking. She was afraid of the emotions she would feel if she failed. She was afraid of shame. She was afraid of feeling foolish. When we lack self-trust, we believe that if we make a mistake, we will not be able to handle the emotional consequences. We think, if I fail, it will destroy me. But what if failure doesn't define you? What if making a mistake is simply data? It's just information telling you what doesn't work, so you can try a new way. To rebuild trust in ourselves, we have to change our relationship with mistakes. We have to start seeing them not as a reflection of our worth, but as an unavoidable part of being a human being who is trying to grow. Imagine standing at a crossroads. The path to the left is safe, familiar, and predictable. You know exactly what will happen if you walk down it. The path to the right is foggy. You can't see where it ends. There are probably rocks and uneven ground. When you don't trust yourself, you will always choose the left path. You will stay in the job you don't like because it's secure. You will stay in the city you've outgrown because moving is scary. But think about James. James lived in a small town his whole life. He had a decent job, a comfortable apartment, and a routine. But deep down, he felt a pull toward something bigger. He wanted to move to a bustling new city, hundreds of miles away. When he shared this idea with his friends, they immediately criticized him. "Why would you do that, James? You have a good thing here. It's too expensive there. It's too risky. What if you can't find a new job? What if you end up broke and lonely?" Criticism from other people can act like a heavy anchor, pulling down our self-belief. Our brains actually have a psychological feature called the negativity bias. This means that we pay much more attention to negative information than positive information. If 10 people tell you that you're doing a great job, and one person tells you you're making a terrible mistake, your brain will obsess over the one negative comment. James listened to his friends, and for a long time, he let their voices drown out his own. He stayed in his small town. He kept his decent job. But the feeling of dissatisfaction didn't go away. It just grew heavier. Eventually, James realized something profound. His friends weren't giving him advice based on what was best for him. They were projecting their own fears onto him. They were afraid of change, so they assumed change was dangerous for James, too. How often do we let other people's fears dictate our lives? James finally made the decision to move. Was it perfectly smooth? No. He struggled to find an apartment. He got lost on the subway. He felt lonely for the first few months. But he survived. And every time he figured out a new subway route, every time he successfully navigated a new neighborhood, his self-trust grew. He learned that he was capable of handling difficult things. What do you think? Has this happened to you? Have you ever let someone else's fear stop you from doing something you really wanted to do? I'd love to hear your experience in the comments. Let's shift gears for a moment and talk about the modern world we live in, because there is an invisible thief stealing our self-trust every single day. Comparison. We live in the digital age. Every time we open our phones, we are bombarded with images of other people's successes, their perfect relationships, their beautiful homes, and their amazing vacations. Consider Elena. Elena had been working in marketing for 5 years, and she was feeling burnt out. She wanted to change careers entirely and become a teacher. It was a huge pay cut, but she knew it would bring her joy. However, every time she opened LinkedIn, she saw her former university classmates getting promoted. They were becoming directors, buying expensive houses, and going on luxury holidays. Elena looked at her own life. She looked at her desire to become a teacher, a job with long hours and modest pay. Suddenly, her beautiful dream felt small and foolish. She started doubting her choice. Maybe I'm making a huge mistake, she thought. Maybe I should just stay in marketing and try to make more money. Everyone else seems so successful. Comparing yourself to others is one of the fastest ways to destroy your confidence. When we compare, we are looking at someone else's external results and comparing them to our internal struggles. We are comparing our chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 20. But here is the truth that Elena eventually had to accept: you cannot live a fulfilling life by following a map drawn by someone else. If Elena stayed in marketing just to look successful to her peers on the internet, she would be sacrificing her own happiness for the illusion of status. To trust yourself means accepting that your timeline, your values, and your definition of success might look completely different from the people around you. And that is okay. It is more than okay, it is necessary. So, how do we quiet all this noise? The parents' expectations, the toxic partner's manipulation, the fear of failure, the friend's criticism, the internet's comparisons? How do we get back to that quiet, confident voice inside of us? We have to learn how to reconnect with our intuition. Earlier, I promised we would discuss why your intuition is often more accurate than you think. Let's talk about the science of the gut feeling. Intuition is not magic. It is not some mystical superpower. From a neuroscience perspective, intuition is your brain's rapid pattern matching system. Throughout your entire life, your brain has been collecting data. Every experience you've had, every conversation, every success, every failure, every book you've read, every movie you've watched, it is all stored in your subconscious mind. When you are faced with a decision, your conscious mind, the logical part of you, starts making lists. It thinks about pros and cons. It thinks about risks and benefits. This is a slow, methodical process. But your subconscious mind is incredibly fast. Before you have even finished making your pros and cons list, your subconscious mind scans millions of past experiences to see if it recognizes a pattern. When it finds a match, it sends a signal to your body. This signal travels through the vagus nerve, which connects your brain to your internal organs, including your stomach and your heart. This is why we call it a gut feeling. When something feels right, you might feel a sense of physical expansion, a warmth in your chest, or a feeling of deep calm, even if the decision doesn't make logical sense right away. When something is wrong, you might feel a tightness in your stomach, a heaviness in your shoulders, or a sudden feeling of anxiety. Your body is trying to warn you that something in the current situation matches a negative pattern from your past. Think back to a decision you almost didn't make. Close your eyes and remember a time when your intuition was right, even when everyone else thought you were crazy. This happened to Liam. Liam was 40 years old, and he had worked in administration his whole life. He felt deeply unfulfilled. One day, he stumbled upon an online course for graphic design. He felt an immediate, intense spark of excitement. He told his family he wanted to learn coding and design to change careers. They were shocked. "Liam, you're 40, they said. You can't compete with 20-year-olds who have been doing this their whole lives. It's too late to learn a new skill like that." Liam's logical mind agreed with them. The pros and cons list clearly showed that it was a risky, difficult choice. But his body disagreed. Every time he opened the design software, his chest felt light. He lost track of time. He felt energized, even after a long day at his regular job. The quiet voice inside him, communicating through his physical feelings, was saying, "Keep going. This is for you." Liam decided to trust his body over the opinions of his family. He studied late into the night. It was incredibly hard. He felt imposter syndrome. He felt like he wasn't good enough. But he kept listening to that internal spark. 2 years later, Liam landed his first job as a junior designer. He wasn't making the highest salary in the world, but he was happier than he had been in 2 decades. To trust yourself, you have to start listening to your body. We spend so much time living in our heads, analyzing and overthinking, that we become disconnected from our physical sensations. The next time you have a decision to make, even a small one, try this: pause. Close your eyes. Take 3 deep breaths. Think about option A. How does your body feel? Does it feel tense, restricted, heavy? Now think about option B. How does your body feel? Does it feel relaxed, open, calm? Your body often knows the answer before your mind has caught up. But what if you've ignored your intuition for so long that you can't hear it at all anymore? What if you feel completely disconnected from yourself? This is where the concept of small promises comes in. Remember I mentioned a daily habit that quietly rebuilds self-confidence? This is it. We'll come back to this surprising idea because it changes everything about how we make decisions and how we view ourselves. Trust is built through evidence. Think about how you build trust with a new friend. You don't trust them with your deepest secrets on the first day you meet them. Trust is built slowly. They say they will meet you for coffee at 10 a.m., and they show up at 10 a.m. They say they will call you, and they call you. Over time, their actions match their words, and your brain says, "Okay, this person is reliable. I can trust them." Building trust with yourself works exactly the same way. When we lack self-trust, it's often because we have a history of breaking promises to ourselves. We say we are going to start exercising on Monday, but when Monday comes, we hit the snooze button on the alarm clock and go back to sleep. We say we are going to set a boundary with a demanding coworker, but when the moment comes, we smile and say yes to their unreasonable request. Every time we break a promise to ourselves, our subconscious mind takes a note. It says, "See? We can't be trusted. We don't do what we say we are going to do." To rebuild this trust, we have to start giving our brain new evidence. We have to start making small promises to ourselves and keeping them. Let me tell you about Anna. Anna had experienced a massive setback in her career. A big project she was leading had failed spectacularly, and she was blamed for it. The shame was overwhelming. For months, Anna couldn't make even the smallest decisions. She felt paralyzed. She felt like a total failure. A therapist suggested a simple exercise to Anna. "I want you to make one tiny promise to yourself every single day, and keep it," the therapist said. "It has to be so small that it is impossible to fail." Anna started with her bed. Before she went to sleep, she promised herself, "Tomorrow morning, when I wake up, I will make my bed." The next morning, she woke up, feeling depressed and tired. She wanted to leave the blankets in a mess. But she remembered the promise. She stood up, smoothed out the sheets, and placed the pillows neatly. It took 30 seconds. It didn't change her career. It didn't erase her failure. But as she looked at the made bed, a tiny, almost invisible spark of pride lit up in her chest. She had done what she said she would do. The next week, she added a new promise. "I will drink 1 glass of water before I drink my coffee." She kept that promise, too. The week after that, she promised, "I will walk outside for 5 minutes, just to breathe the fresh air." These sound like insignificant actions. But psychologically, they are incredibly powerful. This is the concept of self-efficacy, the belief in your own ability to execute actions and manage situations. By keeping these tiny promises, Anna was rewiring her brain. She was proving to herself, day by day, that she was reliable. The snowball effect of these small actions is profound. After a few months of keeping small promises, Anna's confidence began to return. She started trusting herself to apply for a new job. She trusted herself to answer difficult questions in interviews. She didn't regain her confidence by waiting for some grand moment of bravery. She regained it 30 seconds at a time. Many people quietly struggle with this. We think we need a massive transformation. We think we need to read 100 self-help books, or go on a silent retreat in the mountains, to suddenly become confident. But the truth is, self-trust is built in the quiet, mundane moments of your everyday life. It's built in the moments when you choose to act in alignment with your word. I want to invite you to participate right now. What is one tiny promise you can make to yourself today, and keep? It could be reading 1 page of a book. It could be sending a kind text message to a friend. It could be doing 5 minutes of stretching before bed. Whatever it is, commit to it. And when you complete it, pause for a second and acknowledge it. Say to yourself, "I kept my word." Now, let's talk about something incredibly difficult but absolutely essential. How do we trust ourselves after a major disappointment? How do we forgive ourselves for past decisions that brought us pain? Meet Marcus. Marcus had a friend he had known since childhood. Over the years, the friendship had become incredibly draining. His friend was always negative, always demanding, and never supportive of Marcus's goals. Marcus spent years trying to fix the relationship. He gave his time, his energy, and his money to help this friend, but nothing ever changed. Eventually, Marcus realized that being around this person was destroying his own mental health. He made the agonizing decision to end the friendship. Afterward, Marcus was consumed with guilt. He doubted himself constantly. Was I a bad friend? Did I give up too easily? Maybe if I had tried one more time, things would have been different. He felt like he had failed, and because of that perceived failure, he didn't trust his ability to judge character anymore. He started pushing new people away, afraid he would make the same mistake. Here is the hard truth about life: we are all going to make choices that lead to pain. We are going to trust people who betray us. We are going to take jobs that make us miserable. We are going to invest time and money into things that fail. When this happens, it is so easy to look back with the benefit of hindsight and criticize ourselves. We say, "I should have known better. How could I have been so stupid?" But you must remember this: you made the best decision you could, with the information, the emotional maturity, and the resources you had at that time. Marcus didn't stay in the toxic friendship for so long because he was stupid. He stayed because he was loyal, because he was hopeful, and because he valued his history with that person. To rebuild self-trust after a disappointment, we have to practice radical self-compassion. We have to talk to ourselves the way we would talk to a dear friend who is hurting. If your best friend came to you, crying over a mistake they made, you wouldn't say, "You're an idiot. You should have known better. You can never trust yourself again." You would say, "I'm so sorry this hurts. You were doing your best. It's okay. You'll learn from this, and you'll be okay." Why is it so hard to offer that same grace to ourselves? Forgiving yourself doesn't mean pretending the mistake didn't happen. It means accepting that you are a flawed, evolving human being, and that your mistakes are part of your education, not a life sentence. Marcus eventually learned to reframe his experience. Instead of seeing the ended friendship as a failure of his judgment, he saw it as a painful but necessary lesson in setting boundaries. He learned what he didn't want in a relationship, which helped him recognize healthy, supportive people in the future. He didn't lose his judgment, he refined it. Part of this process involves letting go of the need for absolute certainty. When we lack self-trust, we want a guarantee. We want a crystal ball that shows us exactly how our life will turn out if we make a specific choice. We want a 100% guarantee that we won't get hurt, we won't fail, and we won't look foolish. But certainty is an illusion. Life is fundamentally unpredictable. Trusting yourself does not mean believing that you will always make the right choice. Let me say that again, because it's vital. Trusting yourself does not mean believing you will never fail. Trusting yourself means believing that even if you make the wrong choice, even if you fail, even if you get hurt, you have the resilience and the strength to figure it out and recover. It is the shift from "I trust myself to make the perfect decision" to "I trust myself to handle whatever happens after I make a decision." Think about that shift. How freeing is that? You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be willing to support yourself when things go wrong. Developing emotional resilience is like building a muscle. You build it by facing small challenges, feeling the discomfort, and realizing that you survived. Every time you speak up in a meeting, even when your voice shakes, you build resilience. Every time you try a new hobby and do it terribly, but you laugh at yourself instead of getting angry, you build resilience. Let's discuss some practical habits that can help you rebuild this healthy relationship with yourself. First, consider the habit of journaling. Not the kind of journaling where you just list what you did today, but reflective journaling. When you are faced with a choice, write down your options. But then, write down the fears associated with each option. Ask yourself, whose voice is this fear coming from? Is this my fear, or is it my mother's fear? Is it my fear, or is it society's expectation? Seeing your thoughts on paper helps to separate your authentic voice from the borrowed voices we talked about earlier. It clears the fog. Second, practice the power of the pause. Often, when people ask us to do something, we feel pressured to answer immediately. A friend asks you to help them move on your only day off. Your boss asks you to take on an extra project when you are already exhausted. Because we want to please people, and because we don't trust our right to say no, we immediately say, "Sure, I can do that." And then we immediately feel resentful. The next time someone asks you for something, try using this simple phrase, "Let me check my schedule and get back to you," or "I need to think about that for a moment, can I let you know tomorrow?" This pause is magical. It creates a space between the request and your response. In that space, you have time to check in with your body. You have time to ask yourself, do I actually want to do this? do I have the energy for this? By giving yourself permission to pause, you are sending a powerful message to your subconscious: my time and my feelings are valuable, and I deserve a moment to consult with myself before I make a commitment to someone else. Third, learn to validate your own emotions. When you feel sad, or angry, or anxious, what is your first reaction? Many of us immediately try to talk ourselves out of it. We say, I shouldn't feel this way. Other people have it worse. I'm just being silly. This is emotional invalidation, and it destroys self-trust. If you constantly tell yourself that your feelings are wrong, you will never be able to trust your inner compass. Instead, practice saying, it makes sense that I feel this way. If you make a mistake at work and feel anxious, say, it makes perfect sense that I'm anxious. I care about my job, and I want to do well. If a friend cancels plans and you feel disappointed, say, it makes sense that I'm disappointed. I was looking forward to seeing them. You don't have to stay stuck in the emotion, but you must acknowledge that it is real and valid. When you validate your own feelings, you become your own safe harbor. You become a person you can rely on. I want to invite you to visualize something with me. Picture yourself 5 years from now. You are walking down a street in a place you love. The sun is shining. You are wearing clothes that make you feel comfortable and uniquely yourself. Imagine how you hold yourself. Your shoulders are relaxed. Your breathing is steady. In this future, you don't agonize over every tiny decision. When you are faced with a choice, you tune inward. You listen to the quiet, steady rhythm of your own heart. You consider the facts, yes, but you ultimately trust the feeling in your gut. When you make a mistake in this future, you don't berate yourself. You simply say, oops, that didn't work. Let's try a different way. You treat yourself with the same warmth and kindness you would offer a child learning to walk. You surround yourself with people who celebrate your authentic voice, not people who ask you to make it quieter. How does that version of you feel? That version of you is not a stranger. That version of you is not some impossible, fictional character. That version of you is simply the person you are right now, minus the heavy layers of doubt, fear, and other people's expectations. That person is already inside you, waiting patiently for you to clear away the noise so they can speak up again. Rebuilding trust in yourself is not a linear journey. It is not something that happens overnight. There will be days when you feel incredibly confident, when your intuition is loud and clear. And there will be days when the old fears creep back in, when you feel paralyzed by doubt, when you just want someone else to tell you what to do. When those difficult days come, and they will, please be gentle with yourself. Remind yourself that you are unlearning years, maybe decades, of conditioning. You are doing deep, challenging emotional work. Celebrate the tiny victories. Celebrate the moment you set a small boundary. Celebrate the day you kept a 5-minute promise to yourself. Celebrate the time you listened to your body when it said no, even when everyone else was saying yes. These small acts of courage are the bricks you use to build a solid foundation of self-belief. You already have more wisdom than you realize. Your body remembers. Your subconscious knows. You have survived every difficult day of your life so far, and you have learned from every mistake you've ever made. Self-trust grows through action, not through perfection. You don't need all the answers before taking the next step. You only need the courage to take the first step, and the self-compassion to catch yourself if you stumble. If today's conversation encouraged you, please give this video a like and subscribe to Daily English Podcast for more relaxing English listening practice and meaningful conversations about psychology, confidence, and personal growth. And before you go, I'd really love to hear from you. What's one decision you're ready to trust yourself to make? It can be big or small, personal or professional. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your story might encourage someone else who's learning to believe in themselves again. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. Take care of yourself. Trust yourself a little more tomorrow than you did today. Keep learning. Keep growing. And I'll see you in the next episode of Daily English Podcast.